Welcome to Legacy Cast, where we talk about your story, your way, and what are you doing to make sure that people know about you many generations from now. Welcome, Legacy Cast listeners. This is your host, James Snow, with the program Legacy Cast, where we talk to interesting people from around the world, talking to them about what they're doing, telling their story their way, so that the generations from now are going to be able to know what they cared about, what they did, and who they impacted, so that they left a lasting mark on the world and helped people to become better for it. I have with me a fellow military guy, Daniel Faust. Good old buddy. How are you doing, man?
You actually got my last name right. Most people down in the podcast world hack my last name, so I'm very proud.
I guess I've done a little bit of watching some plays or something with the Faustian thing, so maybe that's what helped.
That's awesome. Sweet.
So as the name of the program, Legacy Cast, would imply, we do talk about legacies, but not so much about just the financial side of it, which some people think of first, but we talk about it as, what are you doing to tell your story? And it could be things from how are you raising your children, or what are you doing in society, what are you doing in your business that's going to leave that mark. And we all want to be part of something bigger than ourselves, and that ultimately is what a legacy becomes. Is you're creating something that lasts long after we're not here. And so, what does legacy mean to you, Daniel?
Legacy for me is to go over and to help marriages and families and businesses thrive. That's what we do in our business. And ever since I was a kid, I was originally wrestling with being a pastor or a teacher. So I thought that would leave legacy for me. Once I went into the military, that kind of got left behind. I wasn't looking at legacy at that time. It wasn't until I got married, deployed, was about to have a baby, and was wrestling with divorce all at the same time in this 3 to 4 month span that I started looking at legacy. And as I was working through my marriage, to not go to the divorce realm, and then also working through my brother's death, because my brother died 10 years before that.
Goodness.
I asked God specifically, why did you keep me here? Because he said, I kept you here to teach the world better relationships. And that became my legacy in that regard, is to go over and do that. And we've been pursuing that ever since. So
that's an amazing story. And I'm glad that you're mentioning, kind of the source of what, legacy comes from for you, because I likewise am a person of faith. And, with my business, legacy, it goes back. I even have, the mantra of my business is Proverbs 13:22, that we're to build a legacy that lasts for our children and our children's children. And, that's something that really is very central to what I do. And so, not only in my finance practice, but also here with this radio program, is having something to where we are trying to create something that lasts.
Yeah. And the amazing part is about legacy is you don't realize that until about your 30s. Even when Jesus came on the scene, it was in his 30s. And if you look at the mind, the way it executes, you get executive functioning between 18 to 21. That's why women are mature at 18 and men are usually 21, 22. You're fully grown, and now you've gone over and gone psychologically and physiologically and all those things. But the legacy mind piece actually doesn't kick in until about 29 or 30. It's actually something in the back of the brain that just clicks on. I was actually working in the mental health career field when we were studying this.
Wow.
And yeah, it's right about 30 it happens. And that's when you actually start building your legacy. You start seeing people building towards their careers in their late 20s, early 30s, and looking at what's down the line. That's why people don't get into finances. You don't see an average 18-year-old I'm going to want to save tons of money and create a legacy for 10 generations down the road, unless their parents infused that and it became like a mental staple. It was like a root memory. They don't know why they do it. They just do it. Usually the 30-year-olds plus go over and they make an active decision.
Yeah, so that's when I guess people really become more passionate about what their legacy is going to be, and wanting to do something that's going to outlive themselves.
Yeah.
So obviously, from what you're saying, you really feel like it's an important thing that people consider maybe even spend time to ponder upon what they're doing to build that legacy. Is that true?
Yeah, they need to, because it impacts. Like, I have 4 kids. I'm not sure how many you have, but just giving the example of 4 kids. If you have 4 kids as a father or as a mother, you impact 250,000 people 10 generations down the line. If you have 6 kids, it's 10 million. That's how many people that influence and impact. So you really need to consider whatever you're doing is what legacy you're leaving. And if you're in a business, it even leaves a bigger legacy because there's more people that are impacted. So even if you had 6 coworkers and you worked with them for 20 years, it's like almost like raising a kids in a legacy of a business. So it would be the same similar factor, is that you're making a big impact. Why not go over and make it a legacy impact instead of just a temporal impact?
Yeah, and that's something I think in our country, unfortunately, we've really gotten away from is thinking of things in those terms. Is in other countries, looking at things from the legacy approach is very, very natural for them. But here in the U.S., it seems like everything is just so instantaneous and so instant and quick and temporary that people just don't think about what they're doing that's going to last and create ripples in the multiple generations.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Even in your finance world, you see people go over in their late 20s, early 30s, start buying homes, and they don't think of it 50, 60 years down the pike. They're only thinking like, okay, it's my kids, this is my needs, or hey, this is where I'm at. And then they like go down, and then when they empty nest, they're like, I bought such a big home. Now I need to go over and downsize. I can't handle it. I'm getting older. When me and my wife, it's like we've been apartment living in rental house and living, not because of the society, I can't afford it or whatnot. It was more in the impact of why am I going to buy a place unless I'm looking at 50, 60 years down the line? I want the place to be able to house my kids, my grandkids, and when I'm old as junk and I can barely move and I'm back in the walker again, as you know my story, once I'm back in the walker, then I can go over and still live and thrive there. And I don't have to go over and be like, I have to adjust. I should be looking that road. And most people don't. They go over and they plan in the immediate. And even if they have the finances and the portfolio and everything else, they don't look at the legacy of that mindset of saying, hey, how do I look at myself financially, maritally, business-wise, and my kids and grandkids, maybe even great-grandkids. If I live until 105, which my wife wants, that's going to be old. But if I live to 105, what does that look like in my life? How do I go keep also my body as long as possible so I can pass as much legacy as possible?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how do you correlate that into what you do from a business standpoint, with your particular business?
Well, right now we go over and share, like, our business used to be back to basics. Now it's learn and live. And we used to do a radio show. Now we do Facebook Lives, podcasts, those types of things. We're passing on things of the old and just bring it back to a 21st century model. So tonight's lesson will be freedom and family, how to balance the fun and the functional. And going over and bringing back some of those values of saying like, hey, to pass legacy on, it's great to actually have a parent in continuity at home. My wife is the one that primarily stays home, but keeping that fun and functional. I tend to go more functional. My wife tends more fun. How do I keep a legacy so my kids go over and thrive? I bring those values in that we have to balance between fun and functional. And I actually, one of the scripture references we go through that we don't publicly advertise because we're teaching to a non-Christian world. If Christians call us, we obviously bring it up. But Proverbs 22:6 or no, 22:8, it's train a child the way he shall go, so he shall not depart. Right. So we're taking the world of like, hey, I need to be me, but you need to be you and how God's wired you in the sense of how you learn and how you grow. So even discipline, I try to contextualize discipline. My kids are more fun oriented, so I have to go over and fun's their fuel. So I go over and use fun as a fuel to get them to do the things I needed them to do to be functional. And if they're not doing those things, sometimes you have to take away the fun for them to go over and realize that, hey, my fun's taken away. This is my secret fuel. And I want that back. So I will go over and do what I need to do to straighten the line. So. Oh,
very interesting. Very interesting. So if you're looking at your business and its future, kind of on a timeline here, what would you say from a CEO standpoint would be things that maybe keep you up at night? Are there any, maybe one or two things?
I would say as a exposure, and also looking at, you know, the longevity of going over and doing this. I don't want to have similar problems of what my mentors have had. So that's why we call ourselves Learn and Live, because everybody's like, you need to just live and learn, live and learn. I'm like, I don't want to keep hitting the wall. Why do you want to hit the wall? So the things that keep me up at night is, am I making the right legacy decisions for the next steps? I see a vision cast there, but right now I'm working on exposure and connecting. And then I also have a couple systems that will get me to stages 2 and stages 3. But my concern is I hope I don't get overwhelmed like other people, or just get into one revenue stream and totally focus on that. And then you get destroyed. Like a lot of businesses in the crash in 2008 got destroyed. Houses got destroyed because they tried to say, I'm living on 2 incomes and I'm going to live on that. That's bad wisdom. You go over, and it's been statistically proven that males earn 10 to 40% more. They go over and they're more aggressive. They tend to work longer. And I'm not saying that both partners can't work, but I go over and we live in that wisdom of saying, hey, one person is a primary breadwinner, the secondary person is a supplemental person. So those are the types of things that keep me up at night, is how do I handle those things as those stages go up? Try to plan the before capture, because in 2008 people didn't plan that before. They didn't plan the 2 to 3 steps ahead. Once the economy crashed, they destroyed themselves. The same thing in our business. Like, hey, it's low cost, high yield right now. But eventually it's going to cost a lot. You know, people like, it's only people get in my head right now. Oprah, Dr. Robert Rome, why am I thinking Deepak Chopra? I'm just thinking like random famous people, Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, those types of things. When you get to a certain stage and point, my thing that would also keep me up at night is like, can I get to that next stage and not destroy ourselves in that regard? Because right now it's just me and my wife. So how do you get faithful, available, teachable servants to come in to work in the process and help them grow at the same time, and continually help them grow, but at the same time help yourself grow? So those are probably those things keep at night. And I referenced the marriage piece in 2008 because I just saw that people didn't plan those 2 to 3 things, and they got slammed with it, and it kept them up at night for years. And now they're just recovering now. And you've probably seen that fiscally in your business, that people are just starting to get off the cuff of, I should have planned these 2 or 3 steps ahead, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Oh man, I feel really bad for those people. They really got suckered in, and then they're still recovering now. So
yeah, it took about 10 years before, you know, people were just getting to where they were before. So, you know, you're right. It's something that they're only just now at the place they were 10 years ago. Let's look at this kind of from this next thing. We were kind of leading into it. Do you believe it's important that people create strategies for themselves, for their business and also personal life?
Yeah, we can't, because if we just go by the tyranny of urgent, really great book to read, but if you go by tyranny of the urgent, you're just going to go over and say, hey, this opportunity opened up, I'm just going to go. Hey, this something open, I go. I think we need to ask, it's not the opportunity, it's not the gifting, is God leaded us to go do that thing? So we need to build a strategy for ourselves. We need to build almost like a mission statement for ourselves. Like my mission statement, my own personal one is Romans 12:2, do not conform to the patterns of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So anything that I'm doing is trying to bring newness, what he brings in life. So if it's not bringing newness to people's lives and their relationships and their business and whatnot, then I'm not going to go jump on board. Like people ask me constantly, because I'm a natural seller. They're like, you want to go jump into my finance business, or hey, do World Ventures, or hey, do this. I'm like, you fit in my vision, but I'm not actively going to do that, because just because it's an opportunity, I'm going to dilute myself afterwards. And then you're not going to be able to create a legacy, because people are not going to know who I am. You're not going to know what Learn and Live is. So that's the reason why I would say everybody needs to have a mission statement, have a legacy. I mean, not a mission statement or a strategy of their lives, because you basically you don't want to be 60, 70, 80 years old and regretting your life because you never figured out. Another word would be to call it as a calling or a kazon. It's in the Greek, CHAZOWN. Great book to go over and read. It helps you to figure out that strategy for your life. It goes through your past hurts. It goes through your giftings, spiritual and secular. And it goes through one more piece. I don't remember anymore. I've done it such a long time ago. But it's a great thing to go figure out, is that if you don't figure out your strategy, you're dying. doing things on the cuff, and then you're not planning effectively, and you're going to grab everything that goes over and bait you. And sometimes it might be a good bait, and sometimes it might be a bad bait. And then that's why we typically have regrets. We're human. It's going to happen. But I want to minimize my regrets by knowing my calling, my strategy, whatever plan I need to have to go over and to thrive.
Sure. Yeah. And, I see all the time, especially, new business owners, that they really didn't put together a good solid plan in the first place. They kind of are flying by the seat of their pants, going, all willy-nilly in trying to run a business and just hoping to get by, or, maybe just jump on the internet and Google something and, Google some forms, and that's good enough, as opposed to, seeking out a professional that could put something together for them. And, it just blows my mind, how many people are doing that, where they really should, take the time and be intentional and deliberate about it and put together something that's going to be, strong and be able to be tested.
Yeah, and that's difficult. And also you look at it fiscally, because, you go, if you do everything, so you have the entrepreneur spirit, like, because we're both part of the vetpreneur tribe.
Yep.
There's roughly 14,000 of us. Our military mindset is get her done, get her fixed, get things up and rolling, just keep grinding, perseverance. And when you see somebody like Andrew O'Brien or Grant Cardone or anybody else, you never see the back end on how many times they hit the wall and then finally got the plan. But as a low-end entrepreneur, you go over and you're like, how many things do I have to go pay for? Because sometimes you go and it's like, you can either follow Andrew's mentality or you can follow Dave Ramsey's mentality. They're two drastically different people in the sense of mentality. Mm-hmm. Andrew O'Brien and Grant Cardone are like, leverage debt, go over and try it first, work the processes, and then make the processes as you go. Dave Ramsey's like, save for this, wait for this, open up this. And I think the entrepreneur inside of us goes over and regurgitates that, at least my style. So if you have more of your style, because I know personality styles, you seem to be more the methodical planner, and you rather go over and be like a Moses in a sense, and I'd rather ask a lot of the why questions so I can serve people well. I'm more like a Paul or a Peter, and I'm like, I'll just go out there and do it, and let's see what happens. And so is Andrew, and so is Grant Cardone, and you see those people become viral, and you don't see the people wisdom, like very few Dave Ramseys in the world that go over there like, yeah, Warren Buffett's often, Dave Ramsey's awesome. You go think of Bill Gates and whatnot. Those are the guys with the think tanks and whatnot. But then you see the Facebook guy, and he's a billionaire. And he went over and said, I'm in the closet. I'm just typing up stuff. Magically, it happened. And we don't see the backstory, number one. And number two, those people are more prevalent in our society. So I think we mimic what society shows us. So I think that's why we don't plan with legacy. We need to have new people either step up to go over and show that legacy, or number two is to go over and have those people maybe share their ups and downs more often, so we could see, hey, it's good wisdom, because if this person did it and they're a billionaire, then I definitely need to do it as a thousandaire,
Sure. Yeah, I totally agree with you there. So what would you say is maybe some of the most common reasons that entrepreneurs either fail or give up that you've seen?
Let's see. Several reasons why. Product-based businesses and food-based businesses, those are the ones I've seen the most give up on, because they have the most potential, but they take so much upswing. You have to have patents, you got to have food licenses, you got to have rental space. Unfortunately, I met somebody that just had one of their businesses collapse, literally just about 2 weeks ago. And she didn't know her space. I tried to consult her as best I could in that realm. But the thing is that she did well in her realm of salons and spas and products. She jumped into something new. She's still, in a sense, a baby entrepreneur. She's still living in that. There's employee, self-employee, business, big business, and investor. That's the Robert Kiyosaki model. Right. She wants to be investor level, but she's living in the sense of entrepreneur, employee or self-employee. And you can destroy yourself if you don't think of big businesses, systems, and products. It was a great idea, and it could thrive, but it didn't have the systems that are in there. And then you have to be prepared that it'd be better to do, like I really do, like Andrew, 80% of the time. Like, hey, you go over and you do the work, but you don't go actually do the hard grind until you actually have people in the seats. Like, you just, like, if I'm going to go put out a product or service, I'm not going to go put it out unless I get demand for it. And I think that's a lot of entrepreneurs go over and do. It's like, I need to go invest in this product. I got to get this retooled, rekeyed, and go over and build this canister or do this laser process. And we invest tens of thousands of dollars, and then we don't have an audience that wants it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what destroys us, is after so long we put so much work in. But that's what I did with my book. It was very simple. I advertised my book. All I did is a mock drawing for like $5.
Mm-hmm.
Put it on Facebook, started tagging people. If anybody wants to become an author, I can help them with that. But then when I see 10 people want to buy my book and they're paying me $25 a pop at my PayPal link, guess what? I have money in the hopper. Now I have a reason to go grind out and to go get it done.
Sure.
So it puts in a sense of confirmation of if you do it from a business plan and a strategy and you put that out there and then you test the water and then you get fruit of it, it's great. Then if not, because but my business is rare and unique in that regard, is that you can test. It's a lot easier to test the waters with mine. I can just go put a webinar out, like I'm going to do like August 9th. I'll do a free webinar. I'll see who wants to jump on the Zoom and then go and offer a service, and it'll take me like an hour. That's it.
Yeah.
And I can get and it's low cost for me and it's high yield if they go over and commit. Even if they bought a book, let's say 10% people bought the book, it's like what? $20 times 10, I made $200 for the evening, and I profited roughly about $3.90 times $5 times $5.50. I profited $150. So, but a lot of these entrepreneurs that we go over and see in the veteran and in the civilian space, they're usually doing something way bigger. So I think they would get more disappointed in that particular garden. And if you don't have that legacy mindset, like you're talking about, and looking at it 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road, and you're looking for the quick, 7-figure wonder as we're advertising, that would be my theory, speculated over the past 5 years. That's the reason why a lot of entrepreneurs go up and up, and then they go down in flames. So,
yep. And it's not really, not planning, for that long term is a huge one. Mm-hmm. So, what would you say maybe some specific roadblocks are that you've discovered from your experience that you'd warn people about?
If you're a veteran getting out of the service and you're trying to bring a business to civilians, you really need to learn your civilian market. I have a funny story for this. Now it's funny because it's 6 years later. I got out of the military in 2012. I thought God told me to go move down to Arkansas. Everybody said no, and I didn't listen to wisdom. That's another thing about legacy, is you have to listen to godly wisdom, spouse, business partners, ministry partners, whatever direction you're going. So I go over and I stubbornly, just like the soldier inside of me, we'll figure it out. So we got an opportunity to move to Arkansas, and the ministry I was going to connect with to do the same thing that my business does didn't pan out. I said, well, there's 3,000 churches down there. I'll just go hit doors down. You definitely don't hit doors down at churches, figuratively speaking, not literally. So people don't tell me I'm doing it. But I'm wearing combat boots, I'm wearing khaki pants, and I'm wearing a button-down shirt, going to sweet, sensitive secretaries going, I'm like, I can help out your marriage ministry and your church and everything else. This is who I am, and I want to go serve you. And they're like, okay. And then they walk off like this mentally, and they never call me back. And I hit 250 churches in 2 months. So I was pretty aggressive. I'm like, there's 3,000 churches, 2 to 3% sales funnel. I should be able to get enough to survive if I hit them all. Somebody will like me. But after 250, from excuses going over and saying like, okay, I'll pass the message along, to, oh, they'll yell at me over the phone because they think I'm a solicitor from some telemarketer and I never called them a day in my life, to going over and be like, even if you were Billy Graham or Grant Cardone or whoever, we wouldn't allow you in our church unless you're part of our denomination. Why do I have to convert to go over and help your church? Okay, that's a weird excuse. Yeah, so I would say that's number one. You got to learn the civilian culture, especially if you're going to work with the civilian culture. Mm-hmm. So decide what your brand is when getting out. I would not take your quote-unquote money transitioning out and then just go out full throttle unless you have a lot of money. If you have a year to 2 years of funds and you've saved for a long time and you're transitioning out of a career or out of the military and whatnot, great. And then have a plan about at the halfway point of your finances and say, am I making profitable? Am I making ROI? And then you might need to go back to part-time or full-time work and make it a side hustle until you get out. For me, I did it until 6 weeks out. I'm like, Lord, I'm almost out of money. And I'm like, so I started looking for jobs. I go to the unemployment thing. They're like, yeah, you need to look for 3 jobs a week. I'm like, I applied at 20 before I came in the door. Do I meet qualifications? I'm just that type of guy. I hard charge. But even though I was applying 2 to 20 jobs a day, it still didn't pan out. It doesn't matter how many jobs you apply. It takes an average 6 to 9 months. So we almost went homeless. And it was God's providence that the VA money came in when we were almost broke. I got a job like literally a couple days later. My girl's disability money came in, and it was a scary season. So definitely, if you're going to do an entrepreneurial route, you got to have things set up for success. So it's better to do it as if you're transitioning out, and even though you might think you have this viral opportunity, wait until it gets viral so you can just leave your job. It's easier to quit than to go over and to get a job. It's so much easier to quit. And there's so many job opportunities out there. It's ridiculous. Like, if you needed to, or do a side hustle in between to go over and do it. Like, hey, if you're making 50% of the revenue, all right, figure out some systems and processes that can take over during the day, grind it out. Or maybe you might have a job that's flexible. There's a guy that's in our veterinary tribe, really awesome guy, and he's doing it fantastic. His name is Sean Douglas.
Yep.
He's active duty right now. He's building his speaking career. He's already making thousands of dollars a month coaching people. So when he gets out, he's already going to have a full ride and he can transition out. So that would be my recommendation to entrepreneurs. If you have the opportunity while you're in the job to grind it out until it becomes an abundance, that would be best. Because then you can afford those services, because you can be sacrificial, of course, work with your wife and your kids if you have a family, to make those sacrifices to go over and do that. Like I said, Sean's a great dad, husband, and father I've seen, and he's grinding it out, and the military is blessing him because of it. It's like, yeah, you can take off time to go do that $5,000 speech. Man, I wish I had that when I was active duty. I mean, so that would, if I had to rewind myself and tell my entrepreneur self 5 years ago, I would be like, start doing it part-time now. Let it grind out to overtime. If you have to transition to a job for a season, do that. And then when it becomes an overflow, don't be fearful. Once you got the overflow and you got guidance from wherever wisdom you get from, then pull chalks, because it's so easy to quit. I'm leaving in 2 weeks. Bye. It's a simple, it's 2 sentences in an email. I'm quitting this job. Here's my end date. That's it.
Yep. So what particular support and resources would you recommend that a new entrepreneur look for?
It depends on what entrepreneur that type they're going to be. So, I mean, if they're in services like me, they want to find like-minded, influential people as possible to go over and to look towards. So if I had to say reinvent myself, I would have found a spiritual accountability partner, and I would have found a business accountability partner, because sometimes they don't go hand in hand. So I would have both those people in there, and then to do your due diligence and research. Find the people that you want to grow up to be and see what they went over and did, and try to reverse engineer as much as possible. And sometimes you might get their ear. Like, I have an opportunity to talk to Dr. Robert Rome. He's my mentor in the sense of the business. He's been doing it for 20 years. I got an opportunity to talk to Dr. Gary Chapman for an hour a couple of years back. That was really awesome. And then I would continue to see if you can have somebody regularly do that. So if you can afford a mentor to walk into the process, that would be key. That would be key. And if it's a food-based business or more product-specific based business, you definitely see if you can get with the SCORE group. They help mentor small businesses. Definitely, if you have a financial planner or someone that does business plans, to go over and say, to vet that process, if possible. I mean, $300 to $1,000 average, I've heard, to do a business plan. So, and it's worth its weight, because then it goes over, once you have a business plan, then you can go to banks and then get loans and grants and other things of that nature.
Sure.
Because if the business plan has gone over and proven worthwhile, then they will more likely do that. And the best thing for veterans is if you're over a 680 credit score, you can get like I have to look at the site, but there's a veteran-based business loan that you can get, and it's unlimited as long as your business plan justifies it. So I'd have to do some research again. So a couple of people told me, but I don't want to take out loans myself, because it is a service-based business. It takes a lot longer to build. It's building a brand. It's building a name. It's building a culture. So, but if you're a product-based business and you have the business plan and you have the 680 credit score, I just have to Google it again. But yeah, basically us as veterans to go over and do that. And usually if you have over, a 650 to 700 credit score in general, you can usually get a business loan. But like I said, the business plan is going to be wise and stewardships of that. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, good tips, man. Those are like some serious gold nuggets there. So now we're kind of in a unique time, I think, in history, personally, to where we're able to kind of inject our personal beliefs, our value systems into our businesses. There was a time where it was sort of like you keep that completely separate of business, but now we started to see a lot more people injecting it into it. How have you done that with your business?
It's a balance in between. If you read the stories in the past 10 years about the baker and the florist and all these other things, they were from the state I was in a while ago, in Washington State.
Right.
It seems that Washington, Oregon, California, and the East Coast are the ones that are pressing these faith-based ACLU issues. So I've tried to do as much as I can to learn and live from that. So for me, we do marriage on Tuesdays, we do family on Wednesdays, we do leadership on Thursdays, we do communication on Friday, and on Sundays we focus on faith. So first off, focus on in a services-based business. I focus it only on Sundays, and that's a specific group that wants to go over and watch that. It's tagged in every single time, faith, so you know what you're walking into.
Sure.
Kind of like if you go over and I invite you to church, and you'll be like, they brought Jesus to me. You got to know. Come on, if you're over 18, that some type of faith movement is going to happen. But in a business, depending on if you're service-based or product-based business, more people infuse it as it values or different things. For me, myself, I always serve the client. If they come into other value-based systems, if they go far left or far right in marriage or family or whatever. But if I find out that it's not worthwhile to me, or it's going to be, against my faith, then I would not just go over and just deny them services. Because that's what happened, and that's what made the 3 to 5 year ordeal had to go to the Supreme Court, is because they denied them services totality. The way I would do it in having a faith-based business as I do it now is I'm willing to go over and serve you, but I might not be the best conduit for you. Like, I do one man, one woman marriage. I come from the heterosexual mentality. That's all I've been trained on. That's what I live out every single day. I can help you with general principles and relationships, LGBT, QIA, but I can't get into the specifics. So for me to better serve you is to refer you to somebody that's in that realm, that studies that realm, that understands that realm. I mean, I'll give you the basic services and whatnot, but if you specifically tell me if they wanted to ask how to thrive in a lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, I'm like, I can't speak out of that. And I don't want to do a disservice out of you just BSing you for the dollar. So I would just go over and go with partners that are on, like either the Vetpreneur Tribe or other people that have that comfortability, have that skill set, have that audience, and go over and say, these are the people that I refer you to that would best serve you. I can serve you in these capacities. If you want to be served in full capacities and have a better client-person interaction, they have an understanding, they can be empathetic, they can roll resistance, they can deal with all your issues. If you're looking for a whole total human package for our services, then I would recommend you going over there, because I don't want to be able to go so far and I wouldn't be able to fully serve you. So I'd rather go over and serve you well than give you to another client. And that's what I think those people did not go over and do. They just said, well, it's against my faith to go do X or Y or Z. I'm like, yes, it can be. But the thing is that you chose to serve in a capacity of all people, of all Americans. So at least if I'm going to do that and say I'm going to stand on certain things in my faith, I can still go over and love on them and serve them in other capacities. I'm not going to do it per se, but I know several people across the board that would serve you well in that capacity. And they could have even refused on a different modality, like things that are honest. Like if my schedule is overloaded and I have that type of client and I felt that way, which I usually don't, but let's say I felt that way, I didn't want to serve, I could go over and say, hey, my schedule is full, I can't go over and serve. Or I'm like, hey, we might not be a best client, whatever fit, So you're not offending them, but you're choosing options that are more honest compared to open, because that person was being open. And it's okay to be open, but you're putting yourself to vulnerability. So what vulnerability are you walking out here? Even with this podcast today, I'm putting out vulnerability. I'm willing to take the hit now for whatever comes out of this thing. But most people don't think of that. They go over and they say something and they don't think of the legacy impact. If I say these words to a small audience, they might think it's person to person, and that thing exploded. It's amazing nowadays in our culture that our faith didn't explode hundreds of years ago. It went from person to person. Now you can be on one video, one conversation, one even out in a public bathroom or wherever, and you say something and it can go viral. So your words are very powerful in this legacy of day and age. So you really need to do some reflection to say what direction you're going to go, what things you're going to say, and then be willing to take the impact of the words that you go over and say and the actions and deeds that you're going to go do. Because that was the one thing I see, that those two situations, they're like, I can't believe I'm going through this as such a trial and everything. Well, you kind of put it in yourself. Even sitting down like Moses and the rest of the people, not talking for a second, saying like, if I say this, what's the potential impact of it? So we need to do that. And my personality style, which is 20-25% of the population, tend to do that. We shoot first and then we ask for forgiveness later. So that's what I go over and teach too, is saying like, hey, your style is great, but if you're a mouth thinker, you could destroy yourself sometimes, and you got to be prepared. So balance between mouth thinking and head thinking, verbal processing compared to inside the head. So.
Yeah, I like how you were putting that, because that really is ultimately, kind of how I come from as well. Because, with my practice, I obviously, with my finance practice, I don't beat around the bush with what I'm doing, and so that I may not be the best fit for somebody, and I'll tell people that is, if they're not comfortable with where I am, then that's okay. I know a lot of people that can serve them better. So I like how you put that, it's, you really can give them that referral and you're still bringing value to the table.
Yeah, that's key. Giving them value, treating them with dignity and worth, because we're all human beings. We're all God's image in that regard. You give them dignity and worth. It's just, hey, this is where I don't stand. Like if I went over and said, oh, I murder people, can you come to my trial? I don't endorse your murdering people. So, I mean, I might be praying for you, but I'm not going to be there going over and being like a character witness that says that you're awesome and you didn't do this stuff. I mean, I don't endorse that. If that was a theoretical that came to me, I'm like, I can love on you, I can pray for you, I can visit you in the prison, but I'm not going to go to your court case and be a character witness to go over and say like, yeah, he didn't murder anybody. What about this footage over here? Well, that was made up. I'm like, that you can still serve that person no matter if it's business or non-business. You just figure out and say, for us in faith, Lord, which direction we go to go serve them as best as we can, so we can be a servant to them, so they see Jesus instead of just seeing us, and they think it's us, and then they tie it to that, and then it becomes a legal issue and whatnot, or a financial issue, or whatever issue it is. So we need to look at more of what for the person than just for ourselves.
So what is something that you wish you maybe had done earlier in life that you did not do, that you've learned now was probably a pretty important thing?
I would say to understand people. That's one of the biggest things for me. I just kept shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting, and then not reading either. I would just theorize in my head. I would blame shift everybody and try to make myself always look right. And that's what I mean. I'm even trying to teach my son right now, like as he goes over and does it, because now I can see it because God's opened my eyes for it. And rest of my kids, and they have to remind me of myself. The same thing is that if I had the chance just to sit down and say, visit the quiet, visit those people that don't talk as much, the sweet people, the people that do the diligent work. Because the funny part is that I could have been an A student through high school and college and elementary and grade school if I visited those things. I wouldn't have walked into financial debt, into education, if I went over and just sat down, pondered about stuff, and looked at it in that reality and had people go over and listen to that advice. But unfortunately, we do, in a sense, live and learn more than we learn and live, especially in the early years. Like I said, it's amazing. It's like usually around 30, we're going over like, man, and you start reflecting, and then you look at legacy. And I wonder every once in a while, I'm like, Lord, how does that work for some kids that they just don't walk into the same mistakes? I mean, like, I didn't have godly parents, so, values are caught instead of taught, so I didn't live that out. But still, it's just like, it's amazing. It's like once you see it from a third person view, you go over and like, yeah, that's a really dumb decision. I need to start looking at myself and saying the same thing. I'm like, that might be a dumb decision.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. And especially communication is key. I mean, and it's a great lesson to go and learn. And I can help people by asking them just 2 questions, and I can then help them with the rest. So that's the thing. It's so amazing. It was 2 questions. I'm like, man, if I would have known this as a kid, this would have saved so many things. It would have been so many grief. I wouldn't have walked into proms. Maybe I wouldn't have got my head rammed into a locker, because I didn't shoot my mouth,
Yeah. So let's focus maybe for a couple of minutes a little bit more on a personal level as opposed to business. So what hurdles have you personally faced? Maybe when you were starting up your businesses, and how'd you overcome those hurdles?
Well, we almost walked into divorce 2 times in our marriage, and God really kicked me in the nuts on that one. I finally got. But it was in it was June 1st of 2013. We just transitioned out about a year ago. We moved back to Washington just in that same time frame. And it was like chaos hit again. Job was going away for some stupid reason. Finances, emotional strife, everything else. And I basically threatened my wife with divorce over the phone at my work site outside. And I would say that was the most stupidest and most painful thing that went through. And then months prior to that, about a year prior to that, my wife was in the hospital for like several days. Thought it was going to become a serious issue. Like, she actually went mute for about 3 weeks, like medication induced muteness and stuff like that, and some other complications. And so we've had a lot of trials going through personally. Like, 3 out of my 4 kids almost died because due to complications. We've almost been homeless 3 times. We've had 11 moves in 11 years. I've had 35 moves in 36 years. Majority were military, but I would say those are the biggest trials that have shaped me. And then the biggest one that really changed me is when my wife spiritually kicked me in the cojones, because I was a very toxic person with my mouth. Again, with the personality styles are great, but it was out of control. The inspiring style, Apostle Peter. If you need a secular reference, think of Robin Williams. He's dead, but he's a great reference. Those 2 type of guys or girls, I can't think of any girls at the moment, but they can say great things, but then they can say horrible things. Yeah. And when things didn't go my way, I would say very horrible things. And it took my wife to be bold enough to kick me in the woo-hoo, spiritually speaking, to realize. And it convicted. I looked at after those 7 years. It's amazing how the mind works when you have a revelation that he gives you. All those 7 years all came back in my head. All those conversations, all that hurt, all those things I went over and said. And God's made our relationship thriving now. But it took a long time from year 7 to year 11 and a half to go over and realize that. And that's why I want to pour that into my business. So it's just what biggest pains I went through, I want to bring as a ministry and as a business, and to help people thrive and to not have them do that. And they don't even have to have Jesus. If they understand how we are wired from the womb in our personality style, that's 1 out of 3 things that God goes and gives us. He gives us motives, he gives us values, he gives us personality style, which becomes individual behavior, which then shapes character. And then those people, then with people interacting together, becomes group dynamics. And if you understand how you're wired in your personality style, and why the things that you like and why the things that you hate and why the things that you do what you do, and what people are observing every day, and you think it's great but they think it's horrible, just the way you're portraying it, that's huge. That was absolutely huge. I'm like, my words can be a great blessing, but my words can be a great cursing. And that's my particular style. Peter did that. He was like, you are Christ and you are the King. And I'm really paraphrasing this one. And then he goes over and he says that I'm willing, next couple statements down, he says, I'm willing to, you're not going to die, Jesus. I'm going to die for you. He's like, get behind me, Satan. 1 minute, super awesome, great revelation. Next minute, totally that wrong. And that's what I did for like 7 years of my marriage. It wasn't frequent, but I kept seeing I was chipping away at her. So I would say that would be all those trials together culminate to say, I need to really follow how he's wired me, get great wisdom, go learn from the greats, and then go over and live biblically or secularly, whatever direction that you're looking like. like I said, I love this book too, Dr. Gary Chapman's book. So that's an additional thing that we go over and teach because it really parallels together.
So when you're starting your business, maybe talk me through how that started.
Oh, initially by sheer just tenacity and poor planning. So in 2007, when I got the calling to teach the world better relationships, I initially called my wife. I worked in a comm squadron, so communications, so I could call her for cheap. So I called her right after. I'm crying in the middle of the desert. God's giving me this word. I rushed back to my room. I call the DSN and I give her a call because I had access to that stuff. And I told her, I said, God's giving me a call. He wants me to teach the world better relationships. This book that you sent me this was the thing that opened my eyes, and we're going to go over and do this. And she's like, whoa, slow down. It took 4 years, a couple more deployments, 3 more kids, and then getting certified as a behavioral consultant in 2011. And I still didn't have a plan. So it took a lot of hiccups. It wasn't until this year that I started to get a clue and start doing a lot more research and not just going by the hip of my pants. Like going to network meetings back in Washington. I was so broad in my message, it got diluted. The company's name was Perspectives and Reflections. It could have been a spa. It could have been an adult entertainment place. It could have been whatever. People were so confused. And when I was focusing on 23 domains of life, people were like, I don't know what you do. So a confused mind does nothing.
Right.
So we rebranded under is Learn and Live, and we focus from the bedroom to the boardroom. That's how I brand it. We help your relationships thrive from the bedroom to the boardroom. Simple. You drive. Your relationship always starts in the bedroom when you wake up, transitions to the living room where the family lives. You go in your car, and then you're driving to work, and you're eventually going to enter a boardroom, one or another, a conference room, whatever you want to call it.
Yep. And
your relationships go that way. And then you're driving all the way back. So whatever happens in your relationships during the day, you drive it back home. If you don't know how to deal with it at home, it's going to pour into the boardroom. If you don't know how to deal with the stuff in the boardroom, it's going to pour into the bedroom.
Yep.
So it's been helpful. So I just been taking certain systems and processes and starting to try to spin the plate and get that plate spinning as much as possible. And then if I can have that system in place, either have it automated or in a pattern of life, then I can go on to the next plate. So right now, the Facebook Lives are pretty much routine in my life. Kids and family already know. 5 to 15 minutes. I plan it between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. So I still keep my family thriving. If I have to adjust and I do a late one, I'm like, hey, this is a family business. You know, sometimes I let the kids jump in. I'm like, if they want to join and they want to be part of that legacy, great. If not, well, then I help them get them to their legacy. But it's learning to spin that plate and spin it well, and then get up and rolling, and then go to the next plate. So I would say that too. That was the transition now, is that now I have that, and I bought a Mevo camera. I'd recommend it to you or any of your listeners that do podcasts. This Mevo camera streams to all your Facebook, personal and pages. It won't stream to groups yet. They're still working on that. It'll stream to Twitter. It'll stream to the live stream site. It'll stream to Vimeo and to YouTube. And you can do it all at the same time. Well, excluding Facebook, because Facebook has an algorithm, you can't do it, but all the other ones. So now I can take it and be in like 5 to 7 places and just record it at once. So once I get off with you and do my 7 o'clock run, a 7:30 run, I can just connect it, choose the ones I want to go into, and I do one stream. So now I can technically spin more plates with doing the same amount of one spin work. So definitely too is to, as a business, to leverage the technology as much as possible and hire as soon as possible. Even if you can use Upwork.com and use virtual assistants. I mean, you need to focus on what's your main skill set, what's your zone, what's your specific thing that you thrive at. The rest, do it for the season, grind it out. Once you have enough revenue, go over and hire it out and let them be the subject matter experts of that part of your business.
Yeah, spot on. So is there perhaps some other kind of profession that you think, if you were not doing what you're doing now, that you would go into? Or something that you like to in the back of your mind?
Oh, yeah. What I do in the military on the reserve side, I do a unit training manager. So I'm doing all those things in that job. I'm managing people's education and training from startup to finish. So it's kind of like helping out a business. And then I'm consulting people on their education and training, but then it pours into their lives because of, like, for example, I have several people and they range from 18 to 44. I'm amazed sometimes that we still don't know what we want to do at that age, but you know, everybody's different. So Colonel Sanders didn't figure out until he was in his 60s. I mean, but he made awesome chicken. So I'll wait for God to get him to his 60s to have awesome chicken. So, and he was actually suicidal. He got kicked out of the army, had all these other things, lost a couple wives. It took him until his 60s. And if he would have killed himself that next time, we wouldn't have had his chicken. But anyway, so yeah, I go over and then consult these people while I'm helping them out into their direction. So I'll teach them, like, hey, you don't, I mean, you're like, this person's like, I want to cross train here. I want to cross train here. I want to cross train here. That means like change jobs. So the civilians are listening.
Sure.
So they want to change jobs in the military. Yes, every 2 years, you can technically change a job in the United States Air Force. But if you don't know where you're going, you don't know your zone, you don't know how you're wired in your personality style, how you do that. So I teach that stuff with the people that I'm like, I don't want to burn your time going over and saying like, you chose dental. I don't like dealing with people. You really chose the wrong job if you wanted to deal with dental. You want to be in the records room. You want to be a maintenance person, you know? So that's the job I do enjoy on the reserve side. So if I totally had to quit this, but my motto is this: if I'm a dollar heir or a billionaire, I would do this. I would do it for free. I would do it for fee. I prefer to do it for fee so I can do it full time and focus on the max. But I still did it even when we went almost homeless. I'm like, my wife's like, you should be charging for this. I technically should be, but I got to build a brand of trust before I can go over and charge. Like if I charged every single person for the 15-minute consultation that I went over and did, they never even know, like, and trust me and come back. I had a person the other day. It's like, I'm just waiting for my schedule to calm down. I'm like, I loved what you offered that consultation. I want to start it up. So that's why I said for us, the biggest barrier for our business is exposure, because you have so many people that might want this service, but they might not be ready yet. Or same thing in the finance world. I told you, I'm like, it's not an if, it's a when. When I have it, I'm going to be like, hello, here's the when moment. And that's it. But you have to do the same thing in your business and anybody else's business. You got to have a big funnel of people because there's a lot of things that can kick them out. And if it's product based in a store, you have a 60% chance of losing that person once they walk out the door. So you definitely got to have a lot of customers coming in to go over and to grind it out. That's why the brick and mortar is going away, at least on the online world. It's a flat fee. I can have millions come in. I don't have to pay anybody hourly. And if I want to buy the 5 love languages book 17 years later, guess what? Dr. Gary Chapman still got money. I mean,
So let's look at a couple of personality traits here. What would you say your greatest strength is?
My greatest strength is finding people's giftedness and helping them with that. And then the DISC model of human behavior, which I'm trained in, helped me a lot. Because if you have an outgoing, task-oriented, dominant person like Andrew, I would not put Andrew in a records room working at Boeing. He would be dying inside. Or let's mention somebody else, depending on who's watching this. Let's see. I go take Mark Cuban. Everybody knows Mark Cuban, right?
Right.
I'm going to assume everybody knows Mark Cuban. If I took Mark Cuban and said, you're going to be a secretary, again, he would be dying inside. But if I go take a person like Martha Stewart and I go over and I say, hey, you need to speak in front of 10 million people on the fly, she's not going to fly on there. I think that's why she likes TV. You don't have to see anybody.
Yeah.
But that's what I would say where my strength is in my personality style is I can usually see the giftedness in that person. And the more I'm learning, because I'm always learning from other people. So I take the information from you and then I'll share that with somebody else. And then if I go over and I connected with somebody else, then I learn their information. God's blessed me with that part of my personality style. I never thought I could remember so much stuff. When I was a kid, I'd lose my keys all the time. I'd lose everything. I lost stuffed animals under the bed 6 months later. It's been there for 6 months. I'm like, but yeah, when it comes to people, I can remember so many details about them and then connect it and then grow that and then help other people because I can figure out. Because I also have been in so many different career paths before I did this full time.
Sure.
I had 50 different career paths in the past 5 years. So I'm like, so even as I'm going and I'm utilizing the UTM and the other jobs, I go over and help those people. I got to bless a lot of people, like people struggling, like vets trying to get jobs. And I'm like, hey, you can go over here and do that. So I would say that's one of biggest blessings I would say for my personality style is that I'm willing to speak and I'm willing to help, and I can see rather quickly where that gaping hole is. For myself, on the other hand, yeah, it's like Johari's window. You usually don't see it. But for everybody else, I can see it really quickly. Like even a system at my wife's sleep study she had to go to. They go do the sleep study, and then they schedule your appointment a week later. And then they do then they do the oxygen thing, and then they schedule your appointment a week later. And then they go over and finally buy the machine, and then 7-10 days later, I'm like, why would you waste so much time in practice? If you already know their measurements for their oxygen, have the machine right there and then issue the machine so you can bring in more clients, more bang for your buck. My wife's like, that makes perfect sense. I need to get hired from them. I mean, so I would say that'd be one of my biggest giftings, is I can see their giftedness and talentness or a hole in a system process, and I can point it out rather quickly and figure out at least the big picture system. Now, if they need the nitty gritty stuff, that's when I go find my people I've met and say, hey, this person here. Like if I said, hey, you need financial advice, that's not me, that's Jason. I mean, James, sorry. Wow, I really hacked your name. I'm sorry. That was going fast.
So on the flip side of that, what would you say your greatest weakness is?
Detail, 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 detail. That has, I'm working, it's only God's grace, this job right now on these temporary duty orders is basically a detailed job. In the military, you have these things called checklists. So the person goes over and follows the checklist and fills it out and says how they justify to do a checklist. I can do that because it's only my own. But at the major command level, like working at Boeing or a high-end company, you're getting every department funneling that in. And my job is to check everybody's checklist. So I have 40 units checklist. And then they have about 8 to 10 checklists per unit. So I'm verifying like 400 plus checklists, going in each of those details, looking at it, looking at their comments, verifying their files. Then if they don't have their files, then I have to write a report saying, this is the regulation, this is this, and then I have to write the thing and then write it down and follow that again. It's taken me like a week just to do one unit's worth of their checklist. I just got done today. But naturally, that's where my weak point is. I had a job interview, and I've had several with this transition out of the military, and this one was a funny one. It was working for Obama's healthcare plan. It was I wish they told me the rate at the time. They told me this after the interview. I'm like, if you ever hire for people, just tell them the hourly rate. You'll filter your people instantaneously. You're paying what? I'm not coming in. I mean, people, like, you get 2,000 people to interview. The reason why is you don't put the rate on there. Come on, just put the rate, the range, whatever. So I go into the interview, and the guy's like, what's my biggest weakness? And it's like, it's supposed to be fixing HTML fixes. And they didn't tell it in the job thing. They said it in the interview. Like, our job is to go into this database to find fixes and to fix it. And I said, what's your biggest weakness? I said, detail. And then once I said that out of my mouth, I knew I was canned for my low. Because he told me about the job, and I said that. And I'm like, yeah, but we're not meant to do every single job. We're not meant to go into interviews and do those types of things. So I was glad. I'm like, $14 an hour, and I have to be a think tank and only get paid $14 an hour? I have a family to feed. I'll be homeless in like a month. No thanks. I'm not going to go over and stress myself out and give myself a heart attack. I'm not gifted in that realm. I will go find that person that likes going over and finding the I not dotted in that paragraph. Great. Same thing with my books. I hire somebody else, or I do an editing mastermind, and I have them work on the books, and then I give them affiliate money. So it's a win-win. I get them in their giftedness. They get a free book. They get 10% on all the pre-sales. And then it looks like I'm like a literary genius, and I wasn't. All I know is I took the big concepts and then just boiled it down and recorded it. That's what we're doing with our second book, Leave No Family Behind. We take the greatest resources for for family and parenting, and then we summarize that and direct you to the resources. Like, hey, the 5 love languages of children, for example. That'll be one of our chapters on how to go love your kids in a practical way. And we'll paraphrase it, direct it back to the book, and say, hey, here's a snippet to touch, and here's the master to go to.
So where's the place that you go to for your best brainstorming? You know, some people go in nature, go for walks or whatever. What do you do?
I work with people. I love working with people. So brainstorming for me is always people. And sometimes my greatest ideas come like even when I'm doing phone calls with people and following up with them. That would be another giftedness I think I have, is I follow up with almost everybody. People are like shocked, like, you're still in contact with me. I'm like, yeah, I'm not super famous yet, number one. And number two, I just leverage the time. So my wife had a great idea that, well, she mentioned initially, and then it brainstorm came to reality. It didn't work out last year, but we're going to try to do it again for Christmas, was like a Christmas mystery box. They came out with this idea initially, and people started doing these mystery boxes. Like, I'm going to pay $300 and I got hair in this box. Really? So I'm like, I said, this scam is wrong, but the idea is fantastic. Like, they're even doing this with video games now. They have video game mystery boxes. You might get certain characters or whatnot. You don't know what you're getting. You just know you're getting something. So for our idea, we did the Christmas mystery box and saying, like, we will give you a genre you choose and a price palette that you want, a price point you want to choose. So if you want, we chose electronics, books, clothes, or something else. Then they would give us like a brief description on their, wants, needs, and desires in that realm. We charge X price. I think it was between $20 to $500, and they're guaranteed to go over and to get in that genre. So if they bought an electronics mystery box for like say $50, they would get the value of $50 in the box, and they would guarantee electronics, because these people were buying mystery boxes on eBay and they didn't know what it was at all. It's like, mystery box, $1,000. I'm like, they could be mailing you lingerie and you're not even into that stuff, and or some old thing in their garage and you paid $1,000 because mystery is fun. So that's where that epiphany came from, and people liked it, but I didn't have enough exposure to it. So I might try it again. And it's, again, a low cost, high yield thing. If people don't commit to it, I don't lose anything. I just put it on Facebook and put it on my social medias and say, this is what I'm going to offer. And then once people then commit with invoice, then we'll execute. And we were going to leverage and put a copy of our book in every single box so we could brand ourselves at the same time. So, hey, get your awesome Christmas mystery box, and then you get a copy of Leave No Marriage Behind, or a copy of Leave No Family Behind, or, hey, we'll give you a free consultation, or whatever the value was, or say, hey, you want a family consultation for Christmas also, or like we got children's books that are published out that teach about the personalized style. We were going to do those types of things. Mm-hmm. So I'd say my biggest inspiration is usually with working and brainstorming with people. I don't go by myself in the woods too often. That's usually God telling me something huge, and I went out there for a specific reason. It's not like that. Yeah. I love to go out in the woods, but I don't do it for brainstorming per se.
Okay. So for our final wrap up here, we'll ask kind of a trivia question. What is something that most people don't know about you?
I've been hit by 2 cars. One was Christmas Eve of '93, and next one was the first day in '97, 1997. Then the second time I got hit by a car, my dad and the pastor come in, so I think I'm dying. And he goes over and says, you need to become a defensive pedestrian. I said, what am I supposed to do? Kick the car as it's coming towards me? I mean, so that'd be one of the things that people don't know about me, that I've been hit by 2 cars. So,
wow. Got some bad luck there, Ron.
Yeah, well, I mean, I use it as a sense of humor. Like when I got hit Christmas Eve, they ripped up my shirt, they ripped up my jeans. I still went to church afterwards, and they asked, like, how was my Christmas? I said, you go into the candy store, got hit by a car, da da da. They're like, what? I would do it for reaction. I just had so much fun. I love telling stories. I love people's reactions. So I leveraged the, hey, getting hit by a car to go over and have fun, So, and then my dad, the same thing. It's like, he always tells me to shut up every time I use humor in those situations. Like, that's just me. I could be going over and dying of cancer, and I'll be making jokes until I go. I mean, so that's who I am. So.
Yeah, might as well. Well, now people that are listening are going to want to know how to get a hold of you. So what are some good contact details for you?
All right. So the easiest one to remember is my name, Daniel Faust, Faust. So that'd be Foxtrot Alpha Uniform Sam Tango for the military people. You can easily find that. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn. mostly by those names, or Learn and Live is the business. So Learn and Live, not Live and Learn. So if you look for Live and Learn, that's somebody else. It's Learn and Live. And you'll see a phoenix shield in the photo, or you'll see Learn and Live lettering with like a fiery phoenix type burning type color mixture. If anything else, our website is still in development. learnlive.us. So it'd be learn-n-live.us. Unfortunately, domains have been taken like crazy in this modern world. So you can find us hopefully there in the next 2 to 4 weeks on that. And then most of the time it's social media, and you can still direct message me in this time. So if anybody has any questions, just Daniel Faust on Facebook. That's the easiest way to find me. I can direct everybody to the pages. And if I overload you when you talk to me, I always send a summary of what I go over and talk about with you, because I can bombard you with information, especially if I'm trying to help you. So I usually send a summary. So if anything else, Daniel Faust on Facebook would be the easiest way. And then we can share phone numbers and emails and all that jazz. Sure. So that'd be the easiest one, is Daniel Faust on Facebook. Just message me, and then Learn and Live on the Facebook page, and then all the other places. I can direct everywhere else once you find it on Facebook.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I appreciate you being on the program today, my friend, and I'll let you have a little time for your evening now, and see you around the bend, brother.
All right. Hope to check you out soon. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bob.